Well, good afternoon, everyone. We're finished up with court down here, Las Vegas, Nevada, at the federal court here. We have had another long day. We just finished up, and we're downstairs now and outside. We've got a long, boring day today, and also a few interesting things that happened right at the end of the day. We pretty much all day today, all we did was look at Facebook posts of a ton of people. A lot of these Facebook posts had nothing to do with the four defendants up here. We talked about Sugar Pine Mine today. We talked about the Big Sky operation in Montana and the mine there. There was so much brought up today towards the end, and a lot of things that were so biased that should not have been brought up, that was objected over and over again from the defense. But the judge kept allowing this stuff. A lot of names were brought up from other places, people that haven't been charged in this case, and also people that have been charged that the defendants don't even know. Blaine Cooper's name was brought up multiple times. Ryan Payne was brought up here today. Jason Patrick, Carol Bundy's name was brought up today in court of statements that she supposedly made on Facebook. We've got Brandon Rapola's name was brought up, and Skylar Barboa's name out of Washington, his name was brought up in the case today. And the biggest thing of all today that was brought up that the defense team objected to was the name of Timothy McVeigh. And there was a post that was made by Eric Parker that mentioned the word McVeigh, and that was all it said. It did not lead to who it was or where he was from. It just said the last name McVeigh. The defense team objected to this over and over again, and the judge allowed that post to be read anyway. And then the prosecution continued to lead the witness and dig deeper into this last name McVeigh and asked what that McVeigh might have meant. And even though the objections, the judge allowed the witness to continue answering that question, and she said it meant Timothy McVeigh. And they said, where is this Timothy McVeigh from, or what's it referencing to? And she said, the witness on the stand said, Oklahoma City bombing, the Murrah building. They're in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, and where the building was bombed. At the end of the day here, this is the biggest news of all today. At the end of the day, after the jurors were released, Scott Drexler's attorney got up and objected to this and had a motion for mistrial, which obviously upset the judge. We had some quite lengthy discussion on this mistrial. She overruled it and said that he could still bring the motion back up and they would talk about it tomorrow. But this is the biggest motion for mistrial and cause for mistrial of the whole case since I have been here, that I have heard about or seen. It isn't over yet with this discussion. All the attorneys have objected to it, and with what this amount of bias that has been brought in today, the defense team says that this can never be taken out of the jurors' minds. This image is going to be burnt into their minds of the bias that the prosecution brought in of a case that's not even related. Nobody died at the Bundy Ranch. And the Sugar Pine Mine and the operation that happened there in Montana with the 3% at that mine had nothing to do with the Bundy Ranch either. And these things have been burned into the juror's mind all day today with post and Facebook post after Facebook post, hundreds of Facebook posts that had nothing to do with the Bundy Ranch deal. And the same with the Oklahoma City bombing. Nobody was violent. Nobody was killed at the Bundy Ranch. And they're portraying these guys as 3%ers, as dangerous men in camouflage. And so tomorrow's going to bring a brand new day, and we're going to try to figure out if this case will get dismissed or not under these grounds of bias that got brought in today. So good news for the defense, I think, how the government come in and did a misjustice here today by bringing in biased stuff that had nothing to do with it. So we're praying hard that tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock when we're back here, that something happens here with this information, and that we get what these defendants need. This trial thrown out because of this, what happened. We had one of the prosecutors today, and do you want to talk about what happened today in court, what you witnessed?
I don't see it will hurt.
No, I don't think it will. Just briefly talk about it.
Okay, you know, when in the last, at the last sidebar, John.
Yes.
I don't know if everyone saw it, that when the attorneys get crawled away behind this wooden petition, I call it going to the woodshed.
That's that. Yeah. That was right after Stephen Stewart's attorney got up there, and just moments into it, the judge calls a sidebar.
Yeah, objects and stuff, and so. But as everybody's up at the sidebar, the jury's watching, and the FBI agent Willis comes back into the courtroom and goes into the, through the little swinging doors, and goes and gives his colleague a fist pump.
Yeah.
And she fist pumps him right back and goes, like, we got him.
Yes.
And so I complained to the marshal, and he went over and spoke to them, but that is unfairly prejudicial to the defense to have the FBI think, oh, we got him now.
I seen that.
Terrible.
When I witnessed that, the marshal started staring me down.
Yeah.
Because I was watching over there like that. I'm like, you can't show emotions in his courtroom. We get kicked out for this.
I know. Ashley Jones has been forced to leave the entire trial just because she pointed to someone.
Yes.
During a sidebar.
That's exactly right.
I know. They just want to get rid of
Eric
everybody.
Parker, a couple days ago, was locked up after a break for several hours because he supposedly turned around and looked at another defendant.
I thought he was looking at the screen.
Oh, he was looking at the screen. He tried to tell the judge, and the judge refused to listen to him, passed judgment on him, and locked him up in a little cell here.
Well, that's a retaliatory action against Andrea.
Yes, it is.
That's what that's about.
When you tell the marshals, they kind of ignore us.
Yeah, right.
And hopefully this isn't over either. We told some of the attorneys, and
I think
hopefully
they'll bring it up tomorrow.
It's going to be brought up tomorrow. Well, thank you. Thanks you for coming.
Thanks, Sean.
Yes.
Great to have you back.
Thanks a lot.
Okay.
So here we've got more biased with what we've just heard there from another observer in the courtroom, and myself seeing the same thing, where a FBI agent, Willis, that's in the courtroom every single day. He's in there witnessing everything. He's testifying against these defendants, and he's still going to be called a second time in this case. He testified twice in the last trial, in the mistrial we had a few months ago. He comes into the courtroom and he does like this, a motion that the government had just received, and as we got this, and then one of the other prosecution team does the same thing back and says, yes, we've got this, as they're thinking they're winning this case. And that's in front of the jurors. The jurors are in the room when this is happening. And as we've seen this before, we get punished. We get kicked out of the courtroom when these things are happening. So this is some of the things we're dealing with. The judge laughed several times at different of the defendants' motions and things they were doing in front of the jurors. The day was a hard day to sit through, but it was also the last part of the day here, the last half hour, really got exciting. We got some things here that we're wanting to hear tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. So hopefully and pray that some of these things get heard tomorrow properly, and hopefully this case gets thrown out like it properly is. But we know how Judge Gloria Navarro has been in the past, and she overrules all this stuff and just continues pushing this case, calling people co-conspirators that acting like they're already guilty and the conspirators in this case. And she brought that up again today and says, well, that's what happens when a conspirator and co-conspirator makes Facebook posts. They will be heard. They're going to be used against them. So Andrea Parker's going to have a live stream. She had quite a bit of things happening to her today. She was unable to do the live stream right now. She asked me to do it by myself, and she will do one here. She says once she gets home and it's cooler and she can sit down and gather her thoughts. So give her an hour or so, and Andrea should be doing a live stream here in just an hour or so. Again, thank you everyone. We'll be back down here tomorrow. court's at 10 o'clock down here. Come and support us if you can. It is hot out here. I'll be glad to be back inside where it's cooler, out of this air, in some air conditioning. But thanks again, everyone. Pray for us. God bless, and we will see you tomorrow.
Okay, so we had a crazy day in court today. I'm going to kind of go through as things progressed. We started out the day with the lawyers and the prosecution getting together and arguing over what Facebook information is going to come through. I would say that this probably went on, we didn't get the jury in the courtroom possibly close to 11 o'clock. So they enter one that has a picture of a shirt claiming that Stephen Stewart's wearing an Idaho 3% shirt because it has a flag on the sleeve. That's all they can see. Every grunt style shirt has a flag on the sleeve. So to say that he is wearing a 3% shirt just based on his sleeve, Stephen Stewart was not a member of the 3% of Idaho and didn't go to any of their operations, so he was trying to object to that. They let it go in anyways. They're talking about co-conspirator statements. They're responsible for each other's illegal actions. They're talking about a picture of the three of them. They say training in the desert. Going out and shooting targets with your friends is not illegal. And it's not part of a conspiracy. And a lot of people, even people here in Vegas, do it. People do it all over the country. In fact, any good lawful gun owner should be out using that weapon and familiarizing themselves with that weapon every single day. Like, the more you are familiarized with your weapon, the better gun owner you are. So to sit there and say that they are doing illegal actions because they're out shooting targets in the desert, it's crazy. So, this is the government's response. The date of the conspiracy goes through the date of their arrest. The conspiracy goes to protecting the land around the Bundy Ranch up and until their arrest. She claims that Eric Stephen Scott going to the mines and burns, that is a continuance of the conspiracy because they are recruiting, bragging, and continuing to ward off BLM. The defense lawyers are saying, well, none of these mines, the 3% of Idaho, none of that goes to the conspiracy. From day one, they have said the conspiracy was to extort cattle and prevent BLM agents from executing their court orders. So here they're changing the conspiracy. They're saying that this is all part of the conspiracy, ongoing conspiracy, because they never opted out of that conspiracy. Even today, they're part of the conspiracy because they still refuse to opt out of that conspiracy, even though the court is about the cattle, extorting the cattle and stopping the BLM officers from executing that court order. Has nothing to do with the mines, has nothing to do with Idaho 3%. They bring in evidence, Sugar Pine Mine. This is all outside the jury. We're going through all of this to see, what's going to be allowed in and what's not. Well, guess what? Everything the government wants is allowed in. There's some redactions. They're even arguing about booking photos. Now, the reason that they put Ricky Loveland's booking photos in is because the FBI agent that arrested him could not identify him in the courtroom. They are not supposed to put booking photos in as evidence because it goes to show the guilt of these individuals before they are found guilty. It biases the jury seeing them in those orange jumpsuits. They want to do this for Eric Parker, Stephen Stewart, and Scott Drexler just to show tattoos. But it's not to show tattoos because Eric has shown his tattoo in the courtroom, so is Scott Drexler. It is purely to get pictures of them in handcuffs in orange jumpsuits. Not to mention the photo of Eric, because he has extensive tattoos. He is naked from the waist up, and it is very demeaning. It's a demeaning picture, and they want to show that in the courtroom. This is unbelievable. So, then we go into the jury questions for the gun specialist. They bring up the fact that Stephen Stewart's gun wouldn't be able to shoot as far. His sights were broken. So a lot of the questions were just about weapons. The government redirect. One of the questions were if you could tell the gun was loaded or not. He said, government redirect. You couldn't tell if the gun was loaded, but could you tell if it was unloaded? And then he brought up the bolt was closed, so that means the firing pin, so it was in a ready action. And that the post was intact for the sight on the gun, and he doesn't know if it was broken on the 12th or not. And then they recall up Special Agent Sarah Draper. So with Sarah Draper, they're going through all the Facebook posts. Now, mind you, I would say probably a handful of Facebook posts are from the 12th or before the 12th. And the Facebook posts they're entering, a lot of them, are all after the fact and have nothing to do with it. There's a picture of Eric on the bridge in a crouch position. It's a meme. It came from Blaine Cooper. He shared it. Zach Sander asked him what kind of gun it is. He says a Sega 223. That's being entered as evidence. What does that show? Absolutely nothing. What they are trying to do is cause character defamation on these people. They want the jury to hate them. So they're bringing in every bad post that they possibly can to misquote it on the stand. These guys are going to have to take the stand just to put their Facebook quote back in context. The judge then asks about who Blaine Cooper was and if he was in the bridge or the wash. None of these guys even knew Blaine Cooper the day of the 12th. I think they met him way after the fact, so they're setting this up, the whole Blaine Cooper thing. They're arguing another piece. The judge goes to answer an objection. There's an objection made. Another Viking poem or prayer. It's another meme with a picture of Drexler with the Viking poem on it. And the judge goes to answer the objection, then stops herself. Because she's like, oh, maybe I shouldn't be answering the objections for the prosecution, and then has them answer the objection. This goes to show her bias, and when somebody in our federal government gets down here to watch the videotapes, check the transcripts, and send this judge to jail. She needs to be prosecuted for her actions here. Let's see. Then we go into the operation in Oregon in 2015. And this is Sarah Draper's actual direct testimony. The dispute was between minors and the BLM. The dispute had to deal with surface rights. There was an administrative process going on. The minors had put in an appeal on something, and the BLM had sent minors requests, or the BLM, on something the BLM had sent them. The miners requested help from the militias, and they conducted armed patrols of the area. Operation Gold Rush is what they're saying. And they show pictures of individuals. They're bringing up they're wearing camo, and oh dear, they have a picture with their middle fingers. Then they bring up the people who went to the Bundy Ranch also went to Operation Gold Rush. Mr. Parker, Mr. Drexler, and they were conducting armed patrol security operations. Then it was objected to, how does she know this? It goes back to their laying foundation. There's lots of objections. She's trying to inject things that she's known only from pictures on Facebook, and she's saying that she knows what they're doing. Most of the stuff they're bringing up on Eric is shared links to articles. So if you share a news article, and that news isn't fake news, and it's telling real information, you're a conspirator. Then we have another piece of evidence coming in. Every comment on Facebook is coming in under the rule, the unindicted co-conspirator statement. They can just throw that around, and anyone can be called an unindicted co-conspirator. I am an unindicted co-conspirator, and I never left Idaho on the 12th. I was not in Nevada at any time that month, and they're calling me an unindicted co-conspirator in court. Of course, this was the last trial. They haven't done that this trial. Lots of talk about Blaine Cooper today. We saw lots of pictures, memes, posts from Blaine Cooper, a video from the White Hope Mine. Of course, they're not going to show the interview with the miner because that would give the people an idea of what the federal government was doing to that miner. No, they're only going to show the first 1 minute that shows Blaine Cooper with Eric and Scott Drexler standing by them. Then they talk about Skylar Barbeau. The fact that he was at one of the mines, he was at Bundy Ranch. Eric does a post mentioning him, and then Eric does the post of the fact that he was kidnapped by U.S. Marshals and federal agents. Then Eric does this long, long post. And in this post, this is the post from the other day that we were talking about. They've redacted a couple lines from this post. One of the lines they redacted from this post was a line that said they had green-lighted snipers. Speaking of to why he got down, is they green-lighted the snipers and he was in their crosshairs, and that's why he got down on the bridge. They also omitted one other word, and it was the Millers. And he said something to the fact of he was approving of their vetting abilities so that people like the Millers were not there. They omitted the Millers. But at the beginning of the post, he talks about McVeigh. He doesn't say Timothy McVeigh, he says McVeigh. He talks about how McVeigh put a stigma on the movement, and that all of these things that he did, and the judge and the prosecution is saying that he is adopting what McVeigh did, but not the way he did it. And that he's idolizing him and saying that what he did was bad for the movement, but what Eric does is good for the movement. So they let the McVeigh, even though we argue to have the McVeigh stuff taken out and redacted, they don't do it. They leave it in. And then when she reads the post, she doesn't just read the post. She reads the post and she says, "And who is McVeigh?" There's an objection. Hearsay. She can't speak to what Eric is talking about, but that's what she's doing here. They said, she said, well, it's Timothy McVeigh. They don't stop there. Who is Timothy McVeigh? Well, he's the Oklahoma bomber. He bombed a federal building. They elicit all of that information through her testimony. They go through a bunch more. An MSNBC article that Scott Drexler posts saying, "Nice picture, Eric." A profile picture of a 3%. They are demonizing the 3% in here. Another shared video, a call to action, Sugar Pine Mine, mostly an Oath Keepers video. So, they're jumping all over the place and using everything that other people have done against these people. If you share a meme on Facebook, it can end up in court. There's another, let's see, let's go back to what's really important. They go through Facebook all day long. All these different Facebooks. We have seen so many pictures of Eric Parker on the bridge from every angle possible, and the same picture over and over and over again. The lawyers have objected, accumulative evidence, and the judge just laughs it off and keeps it going. Same thing for Scott Drexler. Same thing, not as much for Steven Stewart, but we are seeing the exact same photos coming up over and over again. They're entered in evidence multiple different times, even if it is the same photo, because they say, well, we got from this media source, we got this from Facebook, and we got this from the person who took it. So the cumulative evidence here, all the evidence is just the pictures of them on the bridge. They don't have any of the body cam footage in, and if they do, they play 1 minute here, 1 minute there. No audio for the defense, but audio for the prosecution when it works for them. Okay. Then they play Steven Stewart's video while the BLM is leaving. And this video, the streets are lined with people with middle fingers. There's no guns pointed. This is another, in the previous trial, Tom Jenkins said that the streets were lined with white men pointing weapons at the BLM convoy. This is one of the videos that proves that that's not true. The BLM is going by, Steven saying, bye-bye, bye-bye, see you later. He, in the video, says, they threatened us with gas. He says, we were going to be martyrs if we had to. He did not say we were there to shoot federal agents. He said we were prepared to be martyrs if we had to. So, Tanasi gets up for cross-examination. The video leaving the BLM traffic driving past them. BLM was driving away. You hear Steven Stewart say they threatened us with chemicals if we didn't back down. But we pushed forward. They were going to be martyrs if they wanted us to. He then asked Sarah Draper, "You're trained to identify threats or identify violence." And he goes to ask the question, was what Steven Stewart was doing a threat? There was an objection. This goes to a legal conclusion. They immediately have a sidebar. The judge, not even a week ago or weeks ago, let the prosecution get a legal inclusion from one of their witnesses. The judge says this is an officer of the law and he can comment on the law. Now, as an FBI agent, another officer of the law cannot comment on the law because it's for the defense and the answer is going to be good. What we have here is a biased judge that needs to recuse herself from this trial. We need to get a fair trial where we are allowed to present our defense. This is not okay, and every American should be upset about this. Of course, the objection is sustained and he has to move on. Then he goes through and he starts saying, well, Stephen Stewart wasn't here, Stephen Stewart wasn't there. They've brought in this giant timeline. This timeline I had talked about before when Ricky Loveland was there. The timeline says, oh, Ryan Payne called Cliven Bundy. Ryan Payne called Cliven Sell. It doesn't say that those phone calls were 37 seconds, so that it was a call that no one answered. But they're putting it all on a timeline. Ricky posts something on Facebook. Ryan, for 4 days, it's the first day, second day, third day, fourth day. I think we start at the 8th, and they're going through all of these posts. Nowhere in any of these posts are Eric, Steve, or Scott until the very last day or the very last 2 days. It's the very last day. They have little states with names and where they're moving to bring everyone to this conspiracy. So what they're doing is they've actually have evidence, but they are taking bits and pieces of it, putting it into a timeline and leaving out information that is they're trying to mislead this jury. 30-second phone call, that should be on there. What does Ryan Payne and what he's doing have anything to do with these defendants? Leventhal. After we went through this, let me bring up one more. At the end, Tanasi says to Sarah Draper. So there's a post of Stephen Stewart, and he's saying that someone showed him a scope. It's bad grammar. It's one of these posts where you really can't understand what he's trying to say. He was up for a long time. It's happening the day of the ranch. What he is trying to say is that a person gave him binoculars to show him that they had snipers up there and they were in the crosshairs. He did not portray that very well on Facebook, and she is saying that he was the one with the binoculars. She's trying to put it in as something completely different. Then she's also met with the U.S. Attorney's Office 9 to 10 times. That's because they really all got together and conspired to find a way to get these guys arrested. While the sidebar's going on, federal agents that sit behind the bar, so that means the prosecution is there, there's a little bench back here, and they're all sitting there like part of the prosecution team. On the other side of the bench, we're not allowed out there, there's room for them to sit back behind the bench. They're doing this in front of the jury during the sidebar. This is unbelievable. We can't even barely talk to each other. We can't chew gum. We can't have candy. All of the defendants, all of the jury gets candy passed out. The FBI prosecuting lady that sits up there gets to chew bubble gum and pop bubbles all day during court. So Leventhal, after the jury's gone and the witness is gone, Leventhal gets up. He says the prosecution elicited testimony from Sarah Draper about Timothy McVeigh. If they had just read the post, some people might not have gotten the McVeigh issue. But because they were like, who's McVeigh? Who is that? Well, Timothy McVeigh. And who is Timothy McVeigh? Oh, the Oklahoma bomber. Oh, the one that bombed the Oklahoma building. Why does that have anything to do with these defendants? They are using defamation of character to get these guys arrested. They are trying to use jury nullification here, people. They are saying we're trying to use jury nullification, but they're the ones trying to use jury nullification. Inside the courtroom, there are two set of rules. One set of rules for the court people that are watching, the supporters, and another completely for all the FBI agents and the people on the other side. It's ridiculous. There is something wrong, and someone needs to stand up and do something about it. So, Leventhal, he motions for a mistrial. He says, what has gone on here is so outlandish that the jury's already been tainted by this information. We need a mistrial, or at the very least, a limiting instruction. They said, well, we already did that, and it's just for Parker, because they're really trying to do that. the judge is kind of backed into a corner here. The prosecution is saying, oh, no, we didn't do that, blah, you know. And the judge is kind of backed into a corner, so she wants off that bench immediately. She's like, well, I deny your motion. I deny your motion for limiting instructions until after cross-examination, and then you could put it up again. But until then, I really need 24 hours to look up. She's like, you know, you need to bring in case law and everything for this motion, and you need to go home and go through this. What she's really doing is giving the prosecution and herself time to cover their asses. She doesn't want to argue this out in the courtroom. Thank goodness for Leventhal to stand up and be like, this is not okay. What you're doing here is backwards. Not to mention the fact that the prosecution can ask for a legal definition from a person of law, but the defense can't. And the judge herself is going to call a sidebar. Not to mention that at the same time, when Tanasi asks a question to one of the civilian Park Service people, not a law enforcement Park Service, a civilian Park Service. Apparently, that's the difference between the ones that go around and check your licenses. He asked him about his fear, and that was eliciting information that was already in a pretrial motion that they are not allowed to talk about. And she asked if the prosecution wants a mistrial for that, and the prosecution says, no, we don't want a mistrial for that, but we want to see the defense's closing statements before they give them. So that time, it's okay. It's not okay for the defense to elicit that question, asking him about his fear that day, even though they're allowed to ask law enforcement officers about their fear. But it's okay if the prosecution elicits information about Timothy McVeigh that has no relevance and nothing to do with this case to make the defendants look bad. I don't even know what to say after all of this today. Not to mention that the marshals at the marshal's office, you know, are giving me problems all day long. They're trying to pull me off of my game, which worked for half the day, by not getting me the clothing. We had it set up. I'm supposed to pick it up on Wednesday. I've been late for the last couple days. I showed up early this morning to pick it up this morning. The guy says, well, he can't tell what is what. And he says, well, you know, I'm like, can you make sure they do it at lunch and I'll come back. I come back at the last break. This is the last opportunity because when we get out of court, the office isn't open, so it doesn't afford me time to go get it. So I have to use the little tiny bits of break that I do get, and the small hour lunch is not enough time to do everything and a live stream. That's why I haven't been doing the lunch updates, because I need time to get through myself and eat. So I'm only going to be doing at the end of day updates from here on out, because unless something amazing happens and we need to get it out right away. So, I come back at that break, and they say, well, didn't you talk to them? Didn't I talk to them? Are you kidding me? I was told if I mention a word, if I even look or mouth something to those defendants, I will be kicked out of court for the entire trial. Not a day, not a little bit of time. So I say that right to the marshal. Talk to them? Well, exactly when am I supposed to be able to talk to them and tell them to put their... That was what you were supposed to do at lunch. That's what you said you were going to do. So once again, I go back into the courtroom, flustered, wasting my entire break. Yes, I'm a smoker. I need to go have my cigarette. So yes, I need my 10-minute break to go downstairs and have my cigarette. They are trying to kick us off our game here. And then in the courtroom, FBI agents, and let me bring it up to you. The jury sits here. The prosecution's bench is here, and then the extra people sit there on this side of the bench. So they're sitting there. The jury's all right there, and they're doing this. We got them. Yeah, they might as well be doing high fives and belly bumps in front of the jury, and the marshals do nothing. Do you know why they do nothing? Because they're all staring at us. They're all making sure that none of us smile at my husband or any of the other defendants. That none of us are saying something too loudly or acting inappropriately, while the FBI and all of the marshals on the other side are doing exactly that. Where is our fair trial? Where are the good people in government? Because I'm beginning to believe there is none left. President Trump, where are you? You say, oh, Jeff Sessions, he commends the prosecution on them and what they're doing here. Ryan Zinke, yeah, he wants to keep the land. He wants to pull all the miners, the farmers, the people off the land. Why do they want it? Because the land makes them money. It's not the money doesn't go to the state. The money goes to the federal government. And that's what's going on here, people. That's the problem that we have with this government. We are not lawless people. We want them to be lawful.